Welcome back. We rejoin now the conversation with the Minister of the Environment and Housing, the Honorable Ken Dorsett.
Minister, let's talk a little bit about the vision for housing and giving Bahamians value for money in housing. What are your plans to get this?
Yeah, I think this is an issue that's very dear to me. I've looked at the current way in which we have rolled out the government's housing program, and I think in large measure there are some ways in which we can provide the Bahamian people with value for money and minimize the wastage. One of the things that I have indicated to the Department of Housing is that we are not going to build and or advance significant sums of money in infrastructure where there is no demand. So for example, you would have seen in the past where there have been subdivisions built in Abaco where millions and millions of dollars have been put in the ground in infrastructure, but there wasn't a demand to purchase the lots in that subdivision when initially offered. So much so that the Department of Housing had to sell those lots at a fraction of the cost, which really caused the government to lose a significant amount of money on that particular subdivision, Central Pines. What I've indicated is we have to build in a very pragmatic manner. And so that is why the database is so important to what we do. Because now I will not only know how many people in North Abaco are interested in a home, I will know what those people in North Abaco qualify for. So that when I decide to spend the people's money on infrastructure in Abaco, it will be on the basis of ensuring that I know that there is demand for the inventory of homes that I will be making available, or lots I'll be making available in a particular settlement or in a particular constituency. That will ensure that when BMC advances monies to the housing program, they are able to convert those advances into mortgages in a shorter period of time, and thus enable them to be a little healthier in terms of their financial position so that they can service the bonds that they have sold to the likes of National Insurance and other entities. And so I've decided to look at this thing holistically. What ought to be done so that BMC becomes healthier, and where we are doing things in our housing rollout that may compromise that, we are bringing that to an end. Another major deficiency has been in the quality of construction.
You mean shoddy workmanship?
Shoddy workmanship, which over the last 5 years has cost the Bahamian taxpayer in excess of $4 million. Without any accountability, without anyone taking responsibility for that. And so I have indicated, and Cabinet has now approved, that for the build out of new homes under my housing program, we will engage private inspectors. Those inspectors will have professional indemnity insurance coverage, so that if something goes wrong, in addition to the contractor, I have someone else who we can hold accountable and responsible if the workmanship is not up to standard.
So, in other words, the customer, the Bahamian customer to the Ministry of Housing, is they can be ensured that they are protected.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, and the ministry will go to bat for them.
Absolutely.
Okay. So I guess that's giving value for...
It is, because at the end of the day, it's not just the end home owner.
Right.
The reality is Bahamian money is being used, Bahamian people's money is being used to build what we bring out of the ground. And so what we have seen is a historic pattern of building a home and thousands of dollars being poured into that home after the fact. Contractor walks away. No one is holding that contractor to account for what is wrong, and seemingly the government just puts bad money into, or good money into, a bad situation. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that the process works as it ought to. And we're not reinventing the wheel here. This happens day in, day out in the private sector. And there's absolutely no reason why the government cannot mirror a program which seemingly works for the private sector regime. And so all we're doing is ensuring that good practices are adhered to and followed in the government's housing program.
Okay, I mean, one question I do want to ask, has the Ministry of Housing actually identified the contractors that have provided shoddy work and put them on notice?
Well, certainly what we have done is I've asked the Department of Housing, and they have in certain instances, to conduct an assessment of all of those contractors who have built for us in recent times. Now, interestingly, I have a list of over 2,000 people who profess to be approved builders under the Housing Act. The vast majority of them have not built for us at all. But certainly I've indicated that I want a meritocracy, all right, within the Department of Housing. Those who build and build well will get multiple homes to construct. Those who do not build well and provide shoddy workmanship, they will be made to account. I will pursue you in the courts if necessary, together with the Attorney General's office, but the slackness that existed before cannot continue and won't under my watch.
I'm sure that's assuring for the Bahamian customer and for the BMC that the Ministry of Housing is going to make sure to protect the investment.
We have to. We have to.
So now we're going to switch to another topic. We're going to talk about the $10 million agreement between National Insurance and the Ministry of Finance to fund housing building. What kind of home do you plan to build, and where do you plan to build them?
Well, let me firstly say that what has been established between NIB, Finance, and BMC and Housing is also historic. Because one of the things that concerned me most, having regard to the fact that out of the 40 or 50 million in bonds that have been purchased from BMC, I think that may be the correct figure. I know about 105 or 110 of it was purchased by NIB. So there's no doubt that NIB is a significant contributor to the government's housing program. And so for me, I wanted to make sure that when it comes to the financial obligations of BMC, when it comes to the expenditure of BMC, to ensure that there's a level of transparency and proper management, we have some of these other agencies partner with us, all right, to be a part of the overall project management of the government's housing scheme. So NIB understands that what it provides to us, it's not just writing a check and you walk away. You provide the funding under this loan regime, and you know exactly where the money is spent and how it is being spent, which I am sure bodes well for their board of directors to have an understanding of how their investments are working for them. And so similarly with finance, we did not want them to be out of the loop. And so I thought that this would be simply good corporate governance. It creates a partnership which I think will benefit the housing program in the long run, because by understanding how the money is being spent and arguably being a part of the decision-making process, I think you'll feel a little better at giving me more money in the long run, which is what I'm hoping for. But I think that was very important. Now, the $10 million that is being provided by NIB is a first step to get the government's housing program initiated. We will build approximately 130 homes from the $10 million facility that is being provided. And to ensure, once again, that we give the Bahamian people value for money, we are building in subdivisions where we already have infrastructure. So, in other words, we're not going to be using any of the $10 million where we can avoid it on infrastructural costs. That $10 million will go toward home construction in areas where once the home is completed, the infrastructure is there for you to tie in, and we can convert those into mortgages and keys right away. And so in New Providence, we will be focusing on areas such as Sunset Close, Fire Trail, Strawn's Hill, Dignity Crescent, and then possibly Adastra. There are also scattered sites that we have throughout the island of New Providence, as well as some additional lots in Pride and elsewhere that we're also going to develop. In Grand Bahama, we're going to build in Bahamia West Replat, which is a multi-family area, which enables us to build duplex townhomes. Once again, maximizing lot space and providing inventory for additional families. Similarly, in New Providence, we intend to construct a few of these townhome models in our what we call our inner city areas, our over the hill area. And because one of the things that's important for us is to ensure that we provide quality homes and begin the re-urbanization and development of over the hill. And that has certainly been very welcome, because there are some people who live in Grantstown, Baintown, and they do not want to move. But we're not providing any opportunities for them to purchase something and stay and remain in the communities that they've been raised.
You mentioned that you're also going to fund projects in Grand Bahama. Is this also in an effort to get people to move to Grand Bahama, settle in Grand Bahama, and build up the economy in Grand Bahama?
Well, certainly for us, I think that there is an existing demand for housing in Grand Bahama, notwithstanding the fact that the economy of Grand Bahama has been significantly impacted in recent years. There is still a demand for housing. And I think with some of the initiatives that are being advanced in Grand Bahama, I think that demand is going to increase. We have a lot of land on Grand Bahama, some of which already has infrastructure. So I'm not too concerned about our ability to meeting that demand. But what I do see, though, is an opportunity for us to create additional jobs in construction in the sector. The one thing that we know is that between 2002 to 2007, when the government built the 1,300 homes that it did then, we created 8,000 to 10,000 jobs in that initiative. And so when it comes to employment, housing represents a significant opportunity for us to engage skilled and unskilled workers in our country. And so that is why I'm happy that we're now beginning the process. But for me, it is important to continue to focus on raising additional monies for the government's housing program.
So, Minister, are there any final thoughts that you want to add about what's going on in housing?
Well, I would like to mention that over the past few months, while we have been waiting for funding, the ministry and the department have been very active, processing applications, developing the database, and I'm also proud to say we have developed new housing designs. And so when we begin our construction, you will not see the old designs that we've used in the past. And I think the public are going to be quite pleased with the models that we're going to launch in the next few weeks. In addition to that, I also want to indicate to the Bahamian people that with the new Planning and Subdivision Act, all of the subdivisions that were completed and or near completion when we came to office did not have subdivision approval, and the new act binds the Crown. And so there are a lot of people out there who have not received conveyances, even though they're in homes. And that is only because I had to wait for final subdivision approval to be granted. I had to apply for them because no one did it before. But we applied for them, and now the approvals are being issued by the Ministry of Works. So legally, I can now execute the conveyances and complete the process. And so I guess that's one challenge that people have. You have a real estate lawyer who is now the Minister of Housing, and so I believe in doing things the right way. And so that's exactly what we're doing.
Focused, determined, and relentless, Bahamian home ownership is definitely foremost on this minister's agenda. Tune in to an upcoming episode of Your Government in Action to hear the minister's initiatives already underway and the vision of things to come in the Ministry of the Environment. That is all for this week. Join us in the next edition of Your Government in Action as we continue to follow what this administration is doing to develop a more prosperous Bahamas.